planned for today, I would like to share and say hello for our friends in Europe that I've seen in the chat, in Americas, and some people with lack of sleep in Asia as well, joining us today to learn about the myths of change. So I'm also a practitioner, and as such, I had my dream list. And sometimes it was more of a nightmare list, sometimes it was a dream. And here I'm just sharing with a number of these big 9 cultural attributes from 2019, so that we brought something close to from a time standpoint, which was kind of a dream list that, again, for some of us will be, I can't go to bed because it will be a nightmare, or you know what, it's my dream and I would aspire to get it. In 2005, just you can go through that quickly, but it's about agility, innovation, diversity, client centricity, performance, and so on and so forth. So I had that list myself as well. And to follow with, or to continue with the myths of change that Leandro was sharing with us, I would like, again, from that praxis standpoint, to bring like 7 distinctions that I call 5 sweeteners. And sweeteners in the sense of they can slow down change in organizations, and 2 salt peppers, or 2 spices that used or correctly used will help you to accelerate and to move forward in your change. So sweetener number 1, and sweetener, remember, it's not that it tastes sweet, that it's so sweet that the hunger to change starts to slow down. It's pretty obvious. But for as many organizations that I directly were leading, or I was working for as advisor or consultant, the biggest neutralizer or stopper to change everything is that everything goes well enough. So we always have a reason to say, oh, goes well enough. And that stops either the burning platform that Leandro was sharing with us, or an aspiration that we may have. So actually we changed primarily for 2 reasons. One of them is desperation, and we talked about the burning platform. And we had a very strong one very recently, which has been the pandemic, which made us change because things were not well enough, or also out of inspiration, which is a hunger, a desire, a vision, a new business model that resonates strong enough for us to start that journey. So this would be sweetener number 1. Everything goes well enough, and probably you will hear that around your organization quite a lot. Second one is the Soviet syndrome, and this is a way to obviously the Soviet Union is far behind us, but for most of us business colleagues around this webinar, we still keep in mind, what was that about, and basically to say what does it mean to change is that there was a system. And that system was about, I pretend to work and you pretend to pay me. So in a way, within the system, there is an agreement of mediocrity where we just settle for good enough. And that the way we see that in organizations is that things like there's no performance system. So it's not visible to the organization if you're doing right or wrong. You don't have much to lose or much to win. You don't make decisions. You're not allowed to make decisions. There are a lot of rules badly communicated. They are unclear. You don't have resources. You don't have the right tools, and probably the quality of your leaders is poor. So anyway, those creates a system imbalance. Or an ecosystem imbalance, which is, as I was saying, is I pretend that I work and you pretend that you pay. So be careful about the Soviet syndrome and if that could be around. And as I'm going through the next one, I would challenge you on, how is my organization doing with those distinctions in mind? The third sweetener is that can I count on the people inside to move forward, to take the organization forward in change? Which is what we call the graveyard organization, and with lifeless employees, which is okay. Could it be that I expect and I use and I utilize, I leverage on the internal resources that I have to really move forward in change, or not. They will not be available as they are part of the graveyard. The fourth one, sweetener, which is and here is more about distinctions and metaphorically to for us to connect and probably to take the pulse that you can do as we speak now is what represents most your organization, more of as a lion, using the metaphor as a lion, more of a savanna lion, more of a reserve lion, or more as a zoo lion. And here the metaphor, the story, it's if you are a zoo lion type of organization where you can be, you will be sitting or laying on the ground on the shade, and at a point in time, every day the food will be brought to you. So that creates kind of an attitude to change. Second one is reserve lion. A reserve lion is the one that still needs to hunt, but it hunts in an open space, which is fenced, but it still needs to do some work and chase the prey to get the food. But if it doesn't go well, still the ranger will bring the food at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the season. But it's still, that you will be fed. And that creates also an attitude towards organizational change. And the third one is the savanna, or the wild lion that knows that unless I move, unless I start moving towards something that might be uncertain, might not be well known, but until the moment I start moving, I will know that if I fail to do that, and assuming that, or metaphorically using that as an analogy to change, you'll die. Being on the move, being on the change, will they guarantee that you will be successful? Maybe not as a guarantee, but knowing that if you are a savanna lion, that will create all the ingredients and attributes for you to be more successful in terms of change. And the last one, I refer here to the culture. We are talking about change, not only culture. I mean, culture is part of change, probably a fundamental part of change, and the Chalfont Project is a primary leverage for us in the way we understand change in organizations. But culture, we use in the language in companies and businesses. And we use it more like, it's the heart of the business, it's the spirit of the business, it's the intangible part of the business, it's the soft part of the business, is the whatever it is, could be the mind of the business, is the soul of the company. Well, actually, the way that our experience tells us every time that we go into organizations that says, I want to change, I want to start a change process, is that culture acts as the immune system. So actually feels that the organization is attacked, the culture is attacked, and that triggers off all the defense mechanisms that in a way we say, why don't we change? And the why don't we change is because our immune system as an organization has been triggered off with a good intention of protecting the culture, protecting the life that you have today that might be with a good intentions, with the bad outcomes. But still, we need to understand that the top-down and outside-in type of approaches that we use in business are not enough. And Leandro was already touching around the multicentric approach. And do we need a top-down approach to change? Absolutely, yes. There could be external circumstances induced by the market or induced by ourselves as leaders of change in the company. Do we need them? Absolutely, yes. But is that enough? We don't believe so. And particularly in the understanding of culture being the immune system, we need also to trigger processes which are inside out, and they are bottom up and sideways and across the organization to, in a way, mitigate that natural reaction of the immune system to go off. So two distinctions that I call the salt pepper, which is as you go into business, we tend, and obviously that doesn't apply to all of us, but to most business leaders, we tend to be very strong in one area, being the business side or the cultural side. And let me advance to say that they go together. It's not one and the other; it's both. As to be one of the exceptions. Leandro's example before. And if we are not ambidextrous, if we are not bilingual on these two axes, and one of them is the strategic clarity. So we need to understand where, as I enter into a change process, what is my strategic clarity? Where do we go to? What value proposition? What space in the market do I want to conquer, and so on and so forth. That's one of the elements. And the second one, which is what is the culture and behaviors synchronized, integrated with that strategic clarity, that without that, you will not provoke change, or we believe you won't provoke change. So actually, you can have this, and I invite you again to tick in your mindset. If I look at my organization, what characterize more my organization in terms of change. And if you don't have clarity, strategic clarity, and you have a poor culture, then we call it zombie area. Basically, you don't move. There could be also a second state where behaviors are strong, culture is well forged, is there over years, so it's well ingrained and defined as a specific culture, but you don't have clarity, so you don't know organization if that's synchronized well with the strategy. So that is what we typically using that again as an image, like a headless chicken type of organization. Lots of activity, lots of energy, but it doesn't go align into one direction to deliver the strategy. So could you have also a lot of clarity and have a big consultant strategy book with I don't know how many thousands of pages, specifying very, very granularly what the strategy could be or should be for you, and still have a culture and behaviors which are not well synchronized into that strategy? That could still create change, but it will be a slow motion change. And I will question that in my last thought that I will share with you in a second. So when we go about change, is about these two things, and that's what I said. We need to be bilingual as leaders of change, whatever our position, or consultants advising organizations are, which is we need both, and we need both integrated and synchronized. Only when we have the two, the actual transformation of the business happen. So let me carry on. And I said before, and this is my last thought, which was, is it slow motion enough? So if we have a clear business strategy and that is not well aligned, synchronized, and well crafted with a set of behaviors, which is actually accelerating the deployment of that specific strategy, is that enough? So the question is, being or changing slow motion, will that give you a sense of survival? So I would like to answer that with those three numbers, and actually a fourth one that I'll mention in a second, which is the speed of change has accelerated. And conceptually, that's clear for all of us. But I wanted to have a number, and the number you see on the left, 75, is the number of years that an industry lasted in average from beginning to end, and end being death or fully transformation into a total different industry. So 75 years was the number of that time span in the 1900s. So that's where the need for change, back then, it was not as critical as it could be identified in your businesses today. 15, the number that you see in the middle, is the number of years that lifespan, so that from birth to death of an industry in average lasted in the year 2000. So in 100 years, from 1900 to 2000, the speed of transformation, the speed of change at industry levels increased 5 times fold. Obviously, that depends on different industries, and this is an aggregated number, but it gives us an idea, not only of a concept, but an idea of, oh my God, this is really happening at big speed, at high speed. And the number you see on the right, 7.5 years, is the last number that we have researched, and that is the same concept, but applying 2015, so only 5 years ago. So in the last 15 years, from 2000 to 2015, again, it doubled again. So that gives you a not only a sense, but give you a number on when we say about speed of change. Here you have numbers. And I was talking to my mother today. My mother is 84. And that was the fourth number I wanted to give you. And there's not a number. It's just a conversation with mommy today. She's 84. And out of the COVID and the pandemics, in the second week when we were locked down, by the way, I'm talking from Madrid, Spain, and Leandro is based, he was talking from London. So talking to mommy today, this morning, she said, in the second week after lockdown, I was using PayPal. I was doing some of my purchases of my shopping on Amazon. And I was talking to my grandchildren on FaceTime. And she never had a computer. She never actually just got one of the classical type of telephones. What I tried to mean about that is from these 5 years that you don't have a number in this specific slide, not only the sense, and that apply what it is, but in that conversation with my mother today, it says not only continue accelerating, but exponentially accelerate the external change. So then that takes me to the last thought connected to speed, which is probably as leaders of change in whatever your position is in the organization. One way to look at what is my job as a change leader is managing this quotient. And the quotient ERC stands for external rate of change, and IRC is internal rate of change. And that my job and my team is, how do I make that this quotient, that division is smaller than 1, which is in a way meaning that the internal rate of change goes faster than the external rate of change. Reminding us of those numbers that we just discussed a couple of minutes ago. Now, the fallacy or the hallucination is that we as leaders, we as organizations, we as companies, we have a strong impact and influence on the external rate of change. When if you ask yourself truly, what is my influence on the regulator base or decisions, on the habits of consumption, on whatever it is, you make a list. The reality is that it's very little, if any. But at the same time, if you ask yourself, what is the capacity or of influencing the internal rate of change, is within your control. You may be doing lots of things or nothing about it, but it's within your control, within the organization control. And we tend to believe that we can act on the external rate of change, and we don't pay as attention and as focus and resources on the internal rate of change, which is actually what will make this quotient to be smaller than 1. And if you make it bigger than the competition, then you will be making reality that speed is the new size. So one last quote to go into the Q&A, which is, the battles in the marketplace are fought outside, but they are all won inside the organization. So back to Marlene.